welcome to another episode of On Foodable Weekly. We are here live at the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago, 2017, on day 4. And today we're going to be talking wine trends. And of course, we've got two great experts, Rachel Speckan, City Winery. Dan, you're also from Maple and Ash, so thank you so much for stopping in. All right, our audience, of course, are beverage directors, bar owners, hotel owners, restaurants that have a concept that might introduce wine for the first time, like fast casual who's bringing in wine. And one of the things that they are finding is the complexity of wine as a whole. So Rachel, let's kind of kick it off with you. What are you seeing for 2017 this year?
I'm seeing people really go back to traditional regions, more of the standards. So we're seeing Bordeaux sales go up again, people drinking Barolo. But we're also seeing people be a little adventurous on the fringe of Europe. And then we're also seeing people take a grape that is very familiar to them, say Cabernet, and maybe doing one from Greece, or being a little bit more adventurous in that side of things.
So you're leading more international.
People are starting to drink more adventurous in the U.S., out of Napa Valley and more towards maybe Lodi or out of the Willamette Valley in Oregon and down to Applegate Valley. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Dan? What are you seeing?
To echo very similarly, I think with the restaurant concepts that are a little bit more fast casual, that maybe have less time to spend educating, those classic regions that have always been classic for very good reasons are just getting better and better and better. The price points are becoming much more approachable, and what's inevitably in the bottle is hyper quality driven, and it's awesome. So that's going to be a great easy fix for the trends.
At each of your locations, because you brought up a nice topic, and that is price point.
Sure.
Customers are obviously now getting to a stage where they can get some really great values out there. How much more are you seeing the big bottles being sold versus the more, true high value, great quality?
Right.
What's the scale?
No, I think it's very noticeable. I think for us, like for what I do at a steakhouse and in our clientele, it's probably 60% on some of those key name brand, recognizable, and staple wines and ingredients and wineries, I should say. And then 40%, let's go ahead and, they leave it in the hands of the sommelier, right? They kind of look at us and say, I don't know, what are you into, man? Just go ahead and put something on the table for me. Here's what I want to spend. Let's roll the dice and have some fun. And that's really fun to see as well, right?
Yeah.
And then invariably, I turn around and they're on their phone like Googling what I just talked about, because I'm just like, he could be full of shit, and maybe he's actually telling the truth. But that's kind of the fun part about it.
What we're seeing is it's more about the experience that we're bringing to the table. So people are trusting us a little bit, but what they want is really high value for what they're spending. So they're willing to spend more if it's a better experience. And as for large format in our venue, we tend to do large groups who are there for a long time. So my goal is get a large bottle on the table so that you have less time talking to me. I'll come back later. And it elevates the experience a little bit.
I like that.
Hashtag size matters.
Let's talk about pink and rosé.
Yes.
All right, so we're seeing a few little trend bumps there. What are you guys seeing?
It's not going away.
Exactly. Wine with color, right?
Yeah.
So we've always talked about sparkling white red, and now we see shades of red. Now we're seeing orange and pink, dark pink, light pink, sparkling pink. There's a lot happening, and I think people are, again, creative on how to ferment, how to make wine, and how to build a white wine with a little bit more flavor.
Right.
And that's really what rosé could be.
Either of you have a pick?
Right now I'm drinking a lot of a wine called Bermejos from Canary Islands. It's Liston Negra, and it's all salty and volcanic. It's delicious.
Nice. How about you, Dan?
Domestically, Copan has done some great stuff with rosé with Wells Guthrie. There's some really interesting things happening all over the world.
Nice. I think the important thing about rosé, though, is I think the dry rosé trend is going to stick around, and that's a big switch because blush or sweet rosé was kind of an American thing, but Europeans have been drinking dry rosé forever.
Exactly.
And then it's also a really good way for wineries to bleed off some extra juice from their red wines, make their red wines more concentrated, darker, more
I wasn't going to go there, but manipulation is key, right? Yeah.
And then you have this byproduct that doesn't cost you anything, but you then can sell. That is, a pale rosé with a little bit less intensity. So we're going to see that too. It's cost effective for the winery as well.
Okay, let's talk about a new region, the Loire Valley.
That's right.
Did I get it right? I got close.
Loire.
It's said to be this year's hot region. Why do you think that's the case? What do you guys see?
So I'm extremely obsessed forever and always with the grape Chenin Blanc, which springs from the soils of the Loire. So I'm always kind of turning to that as a touchstone for me.
You really could have from top to bottom, sweet, sparkling, red, white, all the factors of Loire. So it produces everything. So in terms of diversity, it's knee deep in it. And the producers, if we had to say, what are the areas inside of France that are producing biodynamic, organic style wines, that hit all those holistic farming principles? Loire is probably the breadbasket of all that. Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about a couple of things. We'll go hot or not.
Okay.
All right?
Let's do it.
Hot or not. All right, so the first thing is wine on tap. Hot.
Hot.
Uh-oh, Dan's leaning toward not.
I think it's come a long way, and I think maybe there's some things that need to be worked out.
That's his political.
I know.
That's his political
That's what
answer.
we do. Half of our sales are tap wine, and half of them are bottled wine. So I'm a big proponent, but that is a system that we pioneered and are going to stick to. It's part of our business model.
So again, yes, cause I think her brand is very unique in the sense you guys have been dealing with it from day one, and you've owned it, you learned it, and it works really well. But I've seen other entities that bring it on and maybe just aren't experienced with it, so it inevitably goes downhill very quick. And it's like, well, but absolutely,
to that point.
Yeah, to that point.
To that point.
Yeah.
All right, bourbon barrel-aged wines, hot or not?
I don't think it's going to stick.
It's a tough one.
So that's a not.
You know what I think, if I had to say it just bluntly, bourbon has just skyrocketed, right?
Yeah.
And this is another maybe company or persona that's trying to ride those coattails and put something on it, and I just don't think it to be what wine should taste like or inevitably be.
So it's a gimmick right now.
I think it's a bridge to cocktail culture and bourbon drinkers because it has a higher alcohol, it has the flavors of bourbon.
But do you really need a bridge? I mean, don't you want...
Right, if you drink bourbon, then drink bourbon.
You're a bourbon drinker, right?
Or have a cocktail.
Let's go with a couple of tips for our audience. And that is, I want you guys to pick out two of your favorites here, domestic, that you would recommend to a wine director or a small startup restaurant concept that is trying to put a wine program together. A couple of, great hits for each of you. So we'll start with you, Rachel.
Where I'm seeing is over in Amador County. An old-time friend of mine bought a vineyard. It's called the Rorick Heritage Vineyard now. But that area is kind of marginal in the past. It's really hot right now. It's kind of, further east, up in the mountains. It gets really hot, but old vines, some people doing some really cool stuff. I would say check that out because you can get really good value.
Okay.
And then similarly, down in Santa Ynez in Happy Canyon, really cool stuff going on right there with Sauvignon Blanc Syrah, which typically Syrah is a little bit overlooked, but there's some really great stuff coming out of there. So that's where I would look to.
I like those.
Domestically.
Good tips. How about you, Dan?
I'll piggyback. Like that West Santa Barbara area is, it's just riddled with great kick-ass terroir and also winemaking, like Liquid Farms out there. I think they do an awesome job. And then for me, it's Napa, believe it or not. I'm not going to go to it, but I'm going to say...
stay right there.
Well, because that's a big swath of land, and I'm all about the east side. So for me, it is Sage Canyon to Con Creek, Stagecoach. If you look at that Vaca range on the east side, there is really good terroir that doesn't get recognized, and we clump that in together with like Pritchard Hill and that side. You've got Howell, of course, and you've got Atlas Peak, but on that east side, I think it is a hidden gem of vineyards that are riddled in that area for Cabernet drinkers, a lot of which are at decent price points.
I like that.
Orientation, plantings, elevation, all the cool things that are making Cabernet sleek, opulent, powerful, seductive. It's really good stuff.
Very cool. Guys, thank you so much for stopping in today. Great tips, by the way. And I like your commitment on the hot or not side.